I think that mental health has really always been an issue, but especially in the past few years, it's gotten definitely a lot worse.
I do think there is a mental health crisis.
Yeah, there definitely is. Yeah.
Just like even if you just look at the numbers, like suicides are up, and then checking-ins at like mental hospitals are up, everything's up. I mean, there's definitely a mental health crisis.
I do think there is a big crisis.
Currently at the moment, we've seen close to a 74% increase in depression among youth.
And I think the crisis has grown to be what it is because I feel in a sense that the youth aren't necessarily comfortable talking to the adults and the older people in our society because we grew up in a very different time.
I think that it's not that we're dealing with a mental health crisis. I think that we've always had a mental health crisis.
So I dealt with anxiety and depression before the pandemic, but during the pandemic was very, very, very hard for me.
I ran into a speed bump going into college, and my mental health went down drain to the point where it was hard to really have reason to live.
Mentally, I got in my head a little bit, and I ended up developing a little bit of an eating disorder.
But like I was just always in my room, locked up, and like dealing with everything on my own.
Well, in the past year, there's been 2 suicides at our school. I'm so sorry. One of them went to my middle school, and then one of them, he joined our acting class at the actors lab, and he was in it for a week.
I got a phone call from our children that I needed to come home because Jocelyn's hurt.
I started screaming to myself. I started screaming my other sister's names, and then like I didn't know what to do at that moment. I think Aaron starts to freak out as well. Angel starts calling Dad.
You know, I get there to find any parent's worst nightmare, and that is your child who's passed away.
I was saying, like, you know, where's Jocelyn? And then I'm like so confused. I'm like, you talking about, like, is she upstairs? I'm confused.
And so then you're left feeling, you know, what happened and trying to piece it together. And then you're also trying to piece together, you know, what your children who have survived this are going through. I learned this, is that she was fighting this. And that she actually didn't give up. It was something that she was fighting against. She had fought it for a while. And so then I had to learn as a parent to release her, to let her go and not make her life about how she died, but how she lived. And that's still a work in progress, as you can see. But out of that hopelessness actually came a lot of hope. I'm able to tell my story to other people. I would tell parents right now, lean in, ask your children questions, let them ask you questions. Allow them to be vulnerable. If they're feeling weak, allow them to feel weak. But just get in there and be with them as they do it. There's a scripture that says to mourn with those who are mourning. Rejoice with those that are rejoicing. But if I go in and I'll be sad with you and I mourn with you, right? Then you know that I care about you and show them it's okay to not be okay for a while.
If I could reach one person, I would just tell them that there is hope and that, you know, they don't have to go through these challenges alone, even though it may be feeling dark, it may be feeling lonely, that, you know, there's people out there that will definitely 100% support you.
I drove to the lake, and that's like the first time I called suicide prevention for. Now, I think a lot of people are scared to say that, but yeah, I called them. I had a couple conversations with.
I would love for someone to know that asking for help doesn't make you weak.
Because we want to reach a point where we see, you know, these suicide rates decreasing. And that is like the opposite of the trend that we're seeing right now. Each year we're seeing an increase in suicide, especially among youth, Black youth, LGBTQ youth. We know that this isn't a very alarming statistic. It's really what drives me to do what I do here at MHA.
Suicide is something that a family survives. We are a church-going people, but that Sunday we weren't going to go. It just increases the pain. And so we said we're going to show up late and we'll leave early, but let's be consistent. This is who we've been. And they agreed, and so we went. And when we went, there was something that happened that was very unexpected, that I didn't know that we needed. And it was our community. Our community had shown up. Our pastor at the time looked and saw us and announced that we had come in. And this is not about sadness for me. It's really brought a lot of comfort to me. But they stopped the service. The service just stopped. And all the church just came and they huddled. They huddled around us. And they just loved on us, and they didn't say anything wild or crazy. They were just there. I learned in that moment all the hurt and trauma and pain that people go through. You need your community. You need your community more than you know.
If I could reach someone, the one thing I would want them to know is they're not alone. Like, I just want to completely repeat that again. Like, they are not alone. There's so many people who are able to be there for you.
There's never not going to be someone there. Like, you may think that there's no one around the corner, but there's most likely always going to be someone there.